I recently got these two mowers free off Craigslist. The one on the right, the 20-inch yard machine. I got that one running again. Today, I'm working on a Toro Recycler 22. Now the yard machine, this is what was in the gas tank, mostly water along with a dead roach and some dead spiders. There were also roaches in the air filter. Now I would imagine I'm gonna find similar problems with the Toro Recycler 22. Let's make sure there's some oil in it. It's right down at the add mark, but that'll be good enough to try and start it. Let's check out the fuel tank. There is fuel. Doesn't mean it's good fuel, but there is fuel. Now the air filter. Hey, got another roach, just like the other one. The filter's not terrible, but this definitely has not been run in a while. Roach eggs. That's just what you want to find in your air filter. Let's try and start it, see what happens. And actually, it's guaranteed to start, so let's see about that. All right, we got nothing. Let's get it cleaned up first before we start taking it apart. Let's try a little starting fluid in the carburetor. See if it fires up for just a second. Oh, try it. Hey, we got a fuel issue. Should be easy to fix. I'm gonna take this top piece off that has the recoil assembly on it, 10mm. Usually when it'll run for a second like that with starting fluid, that means a fuel delivery issue. Dirty carburetor, clogged up fuel line, or bad fuel, old fuel, maybe water in the fuel. So we're gonna clean the carburetor, drain the fuel tank, put fresh fuel in, check the fuel line, make sure that's clear. Probably clean the spark plug also, and then we should be good. For now, we're gonna take the carburetor off. These are 10mm. Now this piece is loose. Push this back to the right out of the way. This is the choke and this is throttle. So we have to take those off. With the throttle arm, there's also a spring that we have to take loose. We grab the throttle arm and pull to the left. See how this spins? We want that slot to line up with the arm. And then if we pull straight up, it should pop out. And I pulled the spring out at the same time. The spring goes down into that hole right there. So now the carburetor is loose, but you can't take it off. You can't slide it off these studs because this arm for the choke is holding it in. And you can't take it loose at this end first because of the way it curves back underneath here. So you have to unhook it at this end first. But in order to unhook it at that end, you're gonna have to bend this piece up so that it'll go past that stud. All right, don't do it that way. I'm gonna show you the right way to do it. I've already bent that piece back down and I've got the choke arm put back on. Bending that up, I saw that done in somebody's video. That's taking a shortcut. I can't believe I didn't see these two 10mm nuts. Let's take those off. Then this whole piece, this thermostat switch will come up and you can turn it and get the arm out that way. Just do it the right way, don't bend that up. Now we can take that choke arm, swing it down by the wheel, and it'll pop out. So now the carburetor is loose, only being held in by the fuel line. I have a container ready to catch the gas when it comes out. See that dirt that came out at first? All right, hang on. Tank is empty. We saw how dirty that fuel was when I first broke the line loose. All that dirt is settled down to the bottom of the container. And it wasn't just dirt in the gas, there was some water also. So I'm gonna pour it into a glass container so that we can see it better once it settles out. Here we can clearly see the separation. The top layer is gasoline. The darker area right here, that is water, and down on the bottom, that is the dirt. So with this fuel tank being gravity fed, the water and the dirt sank to the bottom. They got into the fuel line, made their way to the carburetor, and they are probably the reason that this mower would not start. Now the carburetor will slide off. We're going to take this apart and clean it. We're also going to take off the fuel tank and clean that out. Take the fuel line off and blow some brake clean through that. Taking these hoses off so I can clean this piece off with garden hose. The only thing holding the gas tank on is a 10mm bolt down here. I'm going to block off the bottom of the tank, then pour some of that old gas back into the tank. And that gas is clean. Put the cap back on and shake it up just to see if we get any more dirt out of it. Even after doing that, right down on the very bottom, there's still dirt or crud. So I'm going to have to hit that with some degreaser and the garden hose. Now we get to the carburetor. There's a 10mm bolt on the bottom of the bowl. We want to take that off so that we can remove the bowl, and that'll give us access to the float, the needle valve, and the main jet. One thing I want to note before I take it off is the position of this Phillips head screw. It's on the side that has Kohler stamped in the metal. And it does not want to budge. We need plan B. Plan B is more leverage. There we go. Just as we expected, that bowl is dirty. To remove the float, we want to slide this pin out and then lift that float up, and there is the needle valve. Be careful not to lose that. And now down in that tube is the main jet, and you can see that it's slotted, so you need a small flathead screwdriver. So here's the main jet, and there should be something called an emulsification tube also. And you need to make note of the position of that tube. So that's the way it came out. That's the way it'll go back in. Now with the main jet, if I put it on top of this flashlight, and if it's clear, we should be able to see light right in the middle of the jet. And we don't see anything. So I'm going to take a small piece of wire, going to run it through that jet. And now we do see light through the middle of the jet. So it was clogged up, now it's clear. And this jet being clogged is at least one of the reasons why the mower would not start. And now on this tube, there are holes in the side of that as well. You can see how the wire passes all the way through. So I'm going to run the wire through all those holes to make sure they're clear as well. So now let's hit everything with carb spray. Oh, look at that dirt come out of there. That's where the fuel line from the gas tank tied in. If you're doing this, I would suggest you wear a glove because that carb spray is pretty harsh stuff. I got a heavier gauge piece of wire. I'm going to run it up in there and twist it around just to be sure that I get this as clean as possible. Spray down the butterfly valve also, both sides. We should be good. And all of that is what came out of the bowl. And some of that is rust. That's from the water that we saw in the fuel. Well, that water settled in the bottom of the bowl and that caused the rust. Got the bowl as clean as I could. Also cleaned off the gasket up top, so hopefully when I put it on it will not leak. So let's put that carb back together. And now remember, on the bowl, Phillips head screw was on the same side as Kohler stamped in the metal. This is the fuel line coming from the tank going to the carburetor. I'm going to blow it out with some brake clean. It is actually pretty clean, so we're good to go. Let's check out the spark plug. It actually looks like somebody cleaned this plug. You can see how clean it is right here, and then around this side you can see some carbon buildup. So let's check the gap. It should be 0.03. That's right about where it's at. And it is a Kohler plug. It's in pretty good shape. I'm going to use a wire brush to knock off some of this rust on the flywheel, especially right in here where the magnet is. This is WD-40 on a paper towel. When I went to set the gap between the armature and the flywheel, I realized that one of the bolts was missing, and then I realized what had happened. When I took the engine cover off, these three studs stayed on the cover, and what should have happened is the nuts on top should have backed off. So I need to separate those now. On the underside, I have a 10mm wrench on the stud. That's what should have happened. And now these three studs, one of them holds down this side of the armature and the other two go in the gas tank. And make sure you don't lose the spacers on top. Now to set the gap between the ignition coil and the flywheel, I want to loosen both bolts, and you can see the stud over here is not even there. So all I have to do is loosen this one. And because the magnet is right in front of the ignition coil, we'll see it be drawn in as soon as I loosen this bolt. Just like that, you hear it snap on that side. Now I want to turn the flywheel so the magnet is away from the ignition coil. Now you can take a business card, or in my case, a recipe for Crisco cookies. Slide that between the ignition coil and the flywheel. Now I'm going to spin the flywheel back so the magnet is in front of the ignition coil, and you'll see the coil be pulled in, just like that. Now we tighten the bolts down. And on this side, the stud. And on the stud, one side has longer threads than the other, and you want the side with the longer threads to go into the engine. Now you just pull the card up, and the gap is set. All right, let's put it all back together and put some fresh fuel in it and see if it runs. That's it. Let's put some gas in it and see if it'll fire up. Make sure we don't have any fuel leaking, and we're dry here and dry out the carburetor. Cross your fingers, let's see. That was a good day on Craigslist to get this one and the yard machine that I also got running, and I'll put a link to that one, the yard machine video, right up here in the top left. But for this one, it was just neglected, just like the yard machine. It was left outside. You saw the dirt in the carburetor and the fuel line and the fuel tank, but it was fixable, repairable. It runs good now, and everything was done by a complete amateur. So if I can do it, you can do it. Hope this helps. Thanks for watching.